Welcome back to the Sleep Edit, where we try to help tired parents and children sleep better. I'm Dr. Craig Canapari.
And I'm Arielle Greenleaf.
So in this,
And I'm Arielle Greenleaf. Sorry, I was froggy.
let's do it. I'm Arielle Greenleaf. We are
I'm
do it
Arielle
again. Do it again.
Okay. And I'm Arielle Greenleaf.
It's a new, like a real Kathleen Turner energy you're bringing to it today.
Uh,
So, so we thought it would be maybe of interest to talk about our own personal sleep routines, the things that work, maybe things that haven't worked, or our own personal struggles, because I think everybody is entitled to a good night of sleep. And also, I don't know about you, Ariel, I have really struggled with sleep in my life. And I don't know if
mhm.
that's why I end up doing what I do or not, but it's a factor.
Yeah, my parents always say I didn't sleep through the night until I was 4. So they think it's hilarious that I do what I do. But I think I mean, I have struggled on and off for my entire life. And something I do know about myself is despite my struggles, I require a lot of sleep. So I have to do the right things to achieve that, or I quite literally feel awful and sick the next day immediately.
Yeah, I don't know if it has to do with having been a resident or not. I feel like I can tolerate a bad night of sleep reasonably well, though the studies would say that even if you think you're performing well after a bad night of sleep or an insufficient night of sleep, that you're truly not. But, being a resident and a fellow for 6 years will at least teach you to, like, fake it, if you have to, after a bad night of sleep.
Yeah.
Um, when I was a baby, I guess what in today's parlance would be called a high sleep needs baby. And my
Hmm.
mother repeatedly took me to the pediatrician complaining that I was sleeping too much and saying there must be something wrong with me. Now, the jury is still out and if
Wow.
there's something wrong with me or not, but I also feel like I struggled more when I was like elementary school. I very clearly
Hmm.
remember having sleep problems. And I think some of it was because I've always been sensitive to caffeine and, growing up
Uh,
in the 70s and 80s, we'd have Coca-Cola with dinner,
sure.
and, I would always complain to my parents if I couldn't sleep that I had, too much energy in my legs, and
Mm.
I didn't realize until I was studying for my sleep medicine boards about restless leg syndrome in
I was just
kids.
going to say, did you have restless leg?
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't have it that often, but if I have caffeine, I do, so it liter it literally said in the textbook, "Children who have restless leg may complain they have too much energy in their legs." And I was, like, in the
Wow.
library, so I couldn't, like, exclaim, but I was like, "Oh, yeah,
Scream.
makes sense."
Yeah. Makes a
Um,
lot of sense. I had sleep anxiety well, it started when I was young. I probably still have it, but you'll learn later that I fall asleep pretty easily because of some aids. But, my daughter is sort of getting that now too, where she's having trouble falling asleep, but she's looking at the clock and then she's stressing out because she's like, oh my gosh, I have to wake up tomorrow at 6:50. But she's definitely high sleep needs. She's 11, but she still needs, 10 hours of sleep or more. So this is like a new phenomenon for her as she enters puberty. And I had the same problem. In fact, I think my parents ended up taking the clock out of my room at one point because it almost made it worse that I was like staring at the clock and working myself up even more.
well, it definitely makes it worse, and actually, the term of art for anxiety specifically about falling asleep is not really used as much anymore, but it was called psychophysiologic insomnia. So nowadays, in the International Classification of Sleep Disorders, 3rd edition, TR edition, which came out a couple of years ago, all insomnia that has lasted for 3 months or more is lumped under chronic insomnia. But psychophysiologic insomnia is the classical term for people who have a lot of anxiety about falling asleep.
Hmm.
Um, they are watching the clock, they are catastrophizing, like having thoughts
Hmm.
like, "Oh, if I have a bad night of sleep, I'm gonna fail my test tomorrow.
Totally.
Um, my friends aren't gonna like me. I'm gonna fall down. The world's gonna end," like that sort of thinking.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and a lot of, sort of insomnia treatment for teens and adults falls under the rubric of cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, which we've talked about
Right.
before in the podcast.
Yeah,
Um,
Dr. Shelby is she does CBT-I.
yeah, said Dr. Shelby Harris, and a lot of it is the behavior. Like when you say cognitive behavioral therapy, there's two parts to it, and a lot of it is the behavioral part, and that is like sleep restriction. It's not getting into
Mhm.
bed until you're ready to fall asleep. It's shortening the time you are in bed. But the cognitive part is dealing with the thinking, that sort of thinking about sleep. Because the fact is everybody sleeps poorly sometimes, and
Sure.
the vast majority of us, we kinda get up and we do our thing and it's fine. It's not like your best day ever, but you're
Yeah,
also able to function reasonably.
sure. Push through.
So I would say that, certainly if your daughter has sleep anxiety, like, we're actually working with a CBT-I provider or something like
Mhm.
that, especially hesitant adolescents, might be helpful.
We went through a little spell where it was like a couple of or maybe a few weeks of it, and then we worked through it, but she had 2 snow days in a row, and I was working, so I think it was more the fact that she did not get her energy out during those 2 days because we had, mountains of snow outside, and I think physical activity really plays a huge role for her as far as being able to fall asleep, and then the anxiety comes when she's unable to fall asleep quickly.
Sure. Yeah. No, I actually one of my colleagues, Linnell Schneeberg, who, sees children and adults for insomnia, she's a psychologist. In her book, which I'll link to in the show notes, one of the things she talks about, for kids is a bedtime box, which is like
Mm,
activities, that your child can have in their room that it's fine for them to use if they can't sleep.
mhm.
So it could be like craft projects or sensory toys or books or what have you. And I kinda
Yeah,
like that idea. It's like,
yeah,
sometimes if you can't sleep, it's like, "Well, what do I do?" I'm trying to,
right, and I'm pretty sure Dr. Shelby Harris says get up.
yeah.
Like, don't lay there for so long, get up, and then go back to bed when you're feeling more tired.
Yeah, the term for that is stimulus control, and, it's tricky as parents, right? Because like, you don't necessarily want your kid wandering the house,
No,
but
right,
like,
right,
like
but
a
if they had a bedtime box in their room or something, that's a different story, right? If they're contained to their room and
like a preteen or a teenager, if you have the room,
yeah,
getting them like a beanbag chair or something might be nice.
yeah, yeah.
Linnell, I know I talked to her about this, and she's like, for stimulus control, you don't actually necessarily have to get out of bed, but like you can phase shift. You'd be like, okay, I'm not trying to sleep right now. I'm trying to I'm just going to read my book for a little bit.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
So let's talk about our sleep stuff, all the weird stuff that we do to try to get a
I
good
feel
night of
like yours
sleep.
is far more elaborate than mine. Although when I looked at your list, I'm like, "Oh gosh, I feel like I don't do any of this or whatever." And then I started thinking about all the things that I require to get a good night's sleep.
Sure, absolutely. And I don't want my list to come off as too neurotic. Maybe it's a little bit neurotic,
It's not.
but it's also that, as someone who's a sleep professional, I've tried a lot of different things because I'm interested in these sorts of problems.
Sure.
Um,
Yeah,
and actually, let's kind of jump around a little bit because you and I are different in this regard. Do you use any sort of sleep tracking?
absolutely not.
Tell me more.
Well, I did so I feel like when I first the first iteration of the Apple Watch, I feel like I actually, it's even pre that, was definitely the iPhone. There was an app that you could put next to your bed. It's claimed to be able to tell you what stage of sleep you were in and, the quality of your sleep. Now this was 15 or when did iPhones come out? Yeah, probably 15 years ago, something. It was a long time ago. I don't know how accurate it was. And then I just stopped using it. And then when I got my Apple Watch, I was like, let me give this a try. But I don't like wearing anything to bed. I don't like wearing my watch. The only ring I wear is my engagement ring. I don't feel comfortable when I have things on. So to me, I don't need the data to tell me whether I've had a good night's sleep. It's more about how do I feel in the morning?
Yeah, I think that's a good way to look at it. I mean, I use I my primary trackers. I use an Oura Ring. I've worn one for a couple of years. At least when they've done head-to-head comparisons, it seems to have the best sort of combination of technology and algorithm for sleep scoring. But the fact is,
Yeah.
most sleep trackers, like including like Fitbits, Apple Watches, etc., they're pretty good compared with clinical or research devices like actigraphs in terms of telling you when did you fall asleep, when did you wake up,
Yeah.
how much time did you have. Uh,
Mhm.
you know, so whether or not how accurate they are for slow wave sleep, REM sleep, etc., I think the jury's a little bit out, but they're really getting a lot better.
Mm.
I had a friend who had an Aura Ring, and she had to stop wearing it because she was getting so anxious about it that her kids
Yeah.
were like, "Stop wearing it." Um,
Yeah, I think originally that's why I stopped using it, the watch or tracking, but I also so for my friends that track or have the Aura Ring or whatever, it's so interesting to me because there's no education around what should your sleep look like. So they see a very small percentage of deep sleep and they think that that's a problem. But really, if you look at how much deep sleep a normal person actually gets, it's not the whole night of sleep is not
yeah,
deep sleep.
it's 20%
So
of the night.
there needs, yeah, exactly. It's not even the majority of the night. And so I think it unnecessarily adds worry to people because there's no like, here's what's normal. It's the same thing as the baby monitors that show every single movement and make it seem as though the child is awake when they're actually asleep.
I would say that Aura's built-in education seems pretty decent to me. So this phenomenon of your sleep getting worse when you track it is called
Yeah.
orthosomnia, and it was Dr. Kelly
Yeah.
Barron who coined this. I don't remember what institution she's at. Our equivalent in pediatrics is the parents who come in with healthy children and are worried about their child sleep tracker show them.
Mhm.
Um, but I f- I find it interesting for trends, and actually,
Yeah, sure.
I was hoping to actually download some of my data, and it's not good compared with something like the Whoop band. The Whoop band, you can be like, you can tag it with different stuff, and it'll tell you your sleep is better or worse if you did this.
Wow.
Aura doesn't really do that. Uh, but I think I can download my data and play around with this with a chatbot and sort of see if I can understand. My impression has been for some of the other things that I do, it's really helpful, but I'd love to
Mhm.
actually have some hard numbers for it.
Yeah.
Um, but I'd say for anybody, and I've had friends come to me with their devices and like, what do I do with this? And I think they're really
Yeah.
useful for trends. Like, have
Sure.
you changed something and it's making your sleep better or worse over time? Uh,
Mhm.
and I can tell you, the Aura Ring it's Finnish, so the Apple Watch is like it's like American. It's like your sleep
Yeah.
was great, good job, and the Aura Ring is like your sleep was kind of crappy last.
Yeah. Right.
um, but
It's realistic.
sometimes I've felt like I had a bad night of sleep, and the Aura Ring
Says
s-
it's fine.
says it's fine, and it actually makes me feel better. And there have been research studies that actually I should find one for the show notes.
Well, that's really interesting.
Well, it have shown that with dummy trackers, what the tracker tells you the next day is how you feel regardless of how your night of sleep was. So if the tracker says your sleep was good, you feel better the next day, even if it was crap, and vice versa.
Wow.
So we're all like sort of a little bit suggestible in that domain.
Yeah.
So okay, let's talk about physical stuff. Let's talk about the sleep environment. What are your must-haves?
Yeah. So the room has to be cold. I cannot sleep in I'm a hot sleeper even in the dead of winter and so many years ago at this point. I've been in my house almost 8 years and we turned I guess it's four-season porch because it has heat. It had heat in it. We turned it into our bedroom. And so,
What's the temperature
you
there?
know, oh, probably in the winter right now, like 55 degrees.
Oh my god, that's amazing.
Yeah.
How,
And then,
in the summertime,
you know,
what do you keep the temperature at?
as cold as possible. That is a problem. So we ended up so we're about to put in a new HVAC system, but we go to the guest room if it's too hot and turn the air conditioning on to 61 or whatever it is because it's
61?
just
Are you a
yes.
millionaire?
I
Oh my
mean, it's
god.
just an
Arielle, you are living my dream life because if it were up to me, it would be cold enough in my bedroom for me to see my breath.
Yeah, I mean, it
Um,
practically is at times.
I used to keep it 59. That was a hard deal
Well, that's a
breaker
good
for my
one.
wife.
Yeah.
So with compromise is 62.
Mm.
And in the summertime, I keep it at 68. And I feel like
Oof.
if I do it lower when it's really hot, it just runs all night.
Yeah, yeah.
I have totally I totally want one of those 8 sleep pads that will let you regulate the temperature of your bed and customize it,
Yeah.
but they're very expensive and you have to pay a monthly fee. And I'm like, either charge me a lot up
Gosh.
front or charge me a monthly fee. You can't
Yeah,
have both.
not both. Yeah, yeah, yeah. When I go to a hotel room, the thermostat goes to as low as I can get it,
Me
always,
immediately.
even in the winter time. Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, so it definitely has to be cold.
8 Sleep, if you're listening,
Um,
send us your product.
yeah, we're happy to try it out.
We'll review it for our tens of listeners.
Yes. Hey, we have more than that, come on. And we are grateful
These
for all
20s of
of them.
listeners.
Oh, stop.
um,
We're very popular, Craig.
okay, sorry, go on.
Are we talking about
Your sleep environment, it's cold in there. What else?
it's cold in there. I like it really, really, really dark. My room isn't entirely that dark right now, but working on that. It's under construction. Once all the windows are done, we'll have the blackouts in, but I
All
want
the
it
holes
dark.
you've knocked in the wall to let the extra cold in, like, they just let the light
Yeah,
in the morning?
exactly. Actually, no, we made the windows smaller, but I like it dark. I if I could, I would use white noise or a fan always, but well, and or a fan. No, no, no. Well, both together probably. White noise and a fan, but my fiance does not like the white noise. It grates on him. So that is not a thing. And then he also gets cold. So I can't have the fan on because he gets chilly. He's fine with the room being cold, but if I have the fan on, it's just too much. I need it dark. I need it like a baby. I need it dark, cool, and
Cold cave.
quiet. Yeah. The ideal, a cold cave.
Yeah, no, I'm here for that. I would run the fan too if it were allowed, and I do in the summertime. So I tell you one thing that I feel like has changed my life in the last 4 or 5 years is starting to sleep with a sleep mask. For me, honestly, I've always liked sleeping with the covers over my head, and I make like a little,
Interesting.
little porthole to breathe through, and so I like that sensation of pressure over my eyes.
And that would
So,
make me nuts.
I just really now I'm like, I have to sleep with my sleep mask, and I found a cheap one that I like on Amazon, and I my wife got me a weighted one. I tried another expensive one from another company that sent me one that like and I just like the a nicely padded one
Basic.
fits
Yeah.
well, and I just order them 3 or 4 at a time on Amazon because the elastic stretches out for a
Goes.
while.
Yeah. To me, that would never work again because I can't deal with anything on me when I'm sleeping. So, like, watches, that would anything on my head, that wouldn't work for me.
So you said you're a belly sleeper, I think?
I am. Yeah, I'm a stomach sleeper, so that requires a very flat pillow. And most hotels don't have super flat pillows. I will tell you that right now. So I travel a lot with my pillow.
Well, I mean,
Otherwise,
it's a
I'm
skinny
stuck
pillow,
with a
just, like,
neck ache.
it's like a towel, just shove it right in your
Yeah, it's so bad. But the pillow thing, the older I get, is crucial.
I have a very I have, like, a sleep number pillow that is super wide because 'cause I'm a side sleeper, and I want my neck neutral.
Mm.
Um, I gotta tell you, something on our roadmap is I feel like my biggest mistake when we moved in this house is we did not get a king size bed.
Yes, I like a king size bed for sure.
Um So yeah, a king size bed. We kind of figured out where our bed goes in our bedroom. We couldn't both have a bedside table, and nobody wanted to seed the bedside table. And now I'm like, I
Mm.
will give it up because I would really like. What I'd really like to do it actually is this. I think it's a Scandinavian thing where you have separate sheets on both sides.
Yeah, I have heard about this. I definitely have. It's definitely somewhere in Europe. It might be Scandinavian, yeah.
Well, something that really I also have taken to sleeping with a weighted blanket, which I was initially a skeptic of, but I like a lot.
Mm,
And I like
mhm.
the one from Bearaby because it is like a giant heavy thing with holes in it, so it doesn't make you hotter at all. And
Yeah.
in the summer now, I just sleep on top of the covers with that, but obviously it's not great for my wife because then I'm on top of the covers and it's hard for her to move the
Yeah.
covers.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, summertime, wintertime, I really like it. It's great. It's like
Interesting. I'd have to check that out.
yeah, it's like it looks like it's made of this really huge pieces of yarn, but it's,
Cool.
great. And, I got it for my kid, and then we had one for my father-in-law, but he didn't like it, so I took that one, and, the first night I slept with it, I'm like, "I don't know, not for me," and then I tried it again, and I think it
Great.
and I'd say the other thing that I really like, and it's just died, is a light-up alarm clock.
Yeah, okay.
One would argue that if I have a sleep mask in, what's the point of the light? The thing is the sleep mask does tend to move during the night, so it's not like it's
Sure.
perfectly keeping all the light out. And I do feel like, especially in the wintertime, it's helpful. Um,
Yeah.
so we have the one from Philips. It was recommended by the wire cutter. I bought it in 2017 and it's about 8 years old. So now it's just sort of the light will go
It's
on,
getting
then the light will go
yeah.
off, and the alarm will go on. It'll make a bunch of clicking noises. So I think I probably need to.
I know a lot of people talk about the Hatch version. They have one for, like because they have adult products now as well. And I've heard that people like that one and it has that light up thing. And it's funny that you say that because it is so much harder to wake up when it's dark out.
I am a big fan, and my friends down the street have the hats. They really like it. I'm a little bit leery because it is a subscription product.
Oh, I did not know
No,
that.
I believe it has a subscription associated with it, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I'd rather just buy a thing once.
Get a product that yeah, right.
Um, although Hatch, if you wanna sponsor the show, we'll give it a try. Um, oh, and one other
I worked for Hatch a long time ago.
you did?
I did. They now have sleep consultants again. They're rolling something out, but they tried back in, I don't know, it was 2016, 2017, 2018. I worked that for them for a while. Yeah.
I did not realize they were around that long.
Yeah. They've been around a while.
And I'd say the one other device, which, I've had for a couple of years, and I just started using it this winter again, are, AO light therapy glasses. These
Hmm.
these are actually quite cool. I met the founder. He contacted me online when these came out, so he sent me a pair, and, I met him again at the sleep meeting this past year. This is a very streamlined product, and it doesn't use UV light, but it uses, close to UV light, so it gives you a pretty good signal, and the classes are low profile, and they give you a 10-minute dose in the morning, so it's easy enough when you're getting your coffee or stuff, just throw these on. I mean, look, your kids are gonna make
Yeah.
fun of you, right? Like, that's
Right.
just how it goes.
Yeah.
Um, but I feel like when I wear them, I think it helps me wake up more in the morning. Um,
Interesting. Yeah.
and certainly, like, for the fancy term we'd say is circadian entrainment, like, or synchronizing your
Mm.
body clock. Early
Sure.
morning light does seem to help you with your morning cortisol rise. Now,
Hmm.
often cortisol kind of gets a bad rap, right? It's a stress hormone. The fact is your cortisol cycling is one of your sleep signals at night. So your cortisol goes
Yes.
down in the evening and it rises in the morning. So it coming up is a normal physiologic response to wakefulness. And early morning light exposure, which Andrew Huberman has talked about quite a bit on this podcast, really, it's a great circadian signal. It can have a lot of benefits.
Absolutely.
The fact is, if
Yeah.
you don't live in California,
Yeah.
much of the
Right.
year, it's hard to be outside in the morning. Like right
Yeah.
now, it's like 1 degree in the morning, and there's
But
no
it's
sun
also
anyway.
dark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I think especially if you're prone to seasonal affective disorder, have trouble getting up in the morning, some sort of lighted product in the morning might be helpful. So let's talk about routines. What's your routine at night?
It's funny because it's shifted so much because now my kid goes to bed so much later, and I'm, like, ready for her to go to sleep because I want a little bit of time before she goes to sleep before I go to bed, but that's just, like, I feel like that's gonna be gone
Does she go to bed
very
later than you
soon.
yet?
No, not yet, but,
It's like
I
you
can't.
it's like you get older, your bedtime creeps earlier, your kid gets older, your bedtime creeps
Yeah,
later.
right.
We've crossed that point in my
Yeah,
household,
right.
though I do kind of stay up to make sure my younger one, who's 15, gets into bed.
Yeah.
And actually, he's been really good about it, like, he'll just put himself to bed. I used to feel like I had to kind of be like, "Okay, get off your
Time to go to
phone,
bed.
time to go
Yep,
upstairs," and I don't really have to
yep,
manage it anymore.
yeah. So I'm usually leaving a room by, like, 8:45 or 9, whereas before I would be sort of getting myself started into my routine around 9 or 9 between 9 and 9:30. Now I feel like it's more my bedtime's been pushing later because of that, but I do watch TV in the evenings just to take my mind off the world,
In your bedroom?
and then no, not in the bedroom, but we do have one in the bedroom, and Kyle would love to have that on all night, but I cannot handle that on all night.
I mean,
That's
I feel
outside
like
that's
if you
beside
can't
the
have
point.
your fan and he can't have his TV, I mean, that seems fair.
Yeah, right, exactly, compromise. So, I start to wind down now closer to 10. My phone does go on do not disturb as early as 8, just because all day long I'm just attacked with, notifications, and I just need to, like, calm the nervous system. So 8 o'clock, it goes on do not disturb. I can still get notifications, but I have to actually touch my phone to be able to see them. And then at 9:15, it goes on to, like, bedtime mode where it's just, like, black, and the only notifications that can come through are, like, my parents, my daughter,
Have you set that up as
things like
like
that.
an automation or like a focus mode?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Yes,
that's
it's a
smart.
focus. Yeah. Um, so I have that, and then I like to either take a bath or a shower before bed every single night, and then I do like to try and read, even if it's like 5 pages. Try it if it depends on how awake I am. Sometimes it's 20 pages, sometimes it's 5 pages, and then, I do have my phone in my room with me, but that's because it's my alarm clock. But again, it's on do not disturb. It's on black. I don't want
Hatch, you
anything.
gotta send, Arielle alarm clock. Former
Yeah,
employee,
yeah.
employee of the month of August of 2016.
Yeah, right, 100 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's not like a very intense routine, but it's just I mean, even when I'm away, for work or something at a hotel, I like to take a shower or whatever before bed. I just aren't there some, like, biological factors that help, that a hot shower or hot bath can help with sleep?
So, just like cortisol going down is a sleepiness signal, melatonin goes up, cortisol goes down, and body temperature starts to drop, right? So, be like, "Oh, we wanna lower body temperature, it helps with sleep." Actually, if you're really cold when you get into bed, your body's trying to hold on to the body temperature, whereas if you take a warm shower or bath, then your body temperature will start to go
Oh,
down, and it's that change in direction when your blood vessels dilate and it starts to cool your body off that is also a sleep-inducing signal. Likewise,
very
that's
cool.
why wearing socks at night can help you sleep because if your feet are warm, your body is less likely to kinda clamp down and try to hold on to heat. So,
Yeah, I can't do socks.
yeah, no,
I'm too hot of a sleeper.
see, I've kinda come around to wearing the socks myself
Well, maybe in 10 years, I will wanna wear socks.
when you're this old.
I don't know if you're 10 years older than me. You're a little bit older than me.
I'm probably 10 years older than you. So, let's see, I was gonna say in terms of my practices, I'm trying to do a meditation challenge through the New York Zen
Mm,
Center, so I'm trying to get my meditation in before bedtime. I have been a meditator for a very long time. I've tried a lot of different things. I did transcendental meditation for a couple of years. Now I'm kind of doing more of a Zen kind of thing. And doing it before bedtime is good.
yeah.
I set up the coffee in the morning before I go to bed. I always read
Oh,
before I go to bed, even if it's only a few pages. My cell phone's not in my room at night, unless I'm on call, and I have a work phone for that. Though,
yeah.
interestingly, since my work phone is an iPhone, things do get a little bit muddy, and if I take off my phone off of sleep mode, it goes across both of them. So there's
Oh.
ways to kind of work around
Oh,
that. That's also like
yeah.
why I like wearing the Apple Watch at night. I have the lightest, smallest Apple Watch and I wear a fabric
Mhm.
thing. It's also a good alarm clock if you don't want to wake up your spouse. Now that I have a kid away in college, his calls or texts will come
Mm.
through to me. Although
Yeah.
when he went to college, he didn't quite do the math about when we would go to bed relative to him. Sometimes he would just call at like 11:30 just to say hi, and I was like,
Ugh.
"Are you in jail or is everything
Yeah.
okay?"
Are you sick? Yeah.
But, I'm still figuring out the technology because like our trainees and the hospital numbers I have programmed in its favorites, those will break through when it's on do not disturb,
Yeah.
and the watch is more likely to wake me up than the phone, especially in
Oh,
the middle of the
interesting. Yeah, I'd probably be the same way, honestly, unless my phone was on, like, really loud or something because I don't hear. Last night, my daughter woke up at 11 or didn't wake up. She hadn't fallen asleep, like we were talking about, and I was dead asleep, and, uh, she woke up at 10 or 11, and or she called me at 11, and I didn't even hear her. So Kyle had to wake me up and say, "Hey, she's calling for you."
Kyle, you don't
So
wanna
I
go
probably would
take care of
need
that
to.
yourself?
Yeah, no.
Yeah, 'cause sometimes
She
they want your
she
that's their mom too.
yeah, she wanted me. Yeah, sometimes it's only mom.
Yeah. Let me tell you, my kids, it's been a long time since they've needed me at night. So my older kid will sometimes, amusingly sleepwalk in,
Oh,
and it's usually pretty funny because it can be hard to tell at first. I'm not gonna embarrass
you're
him by
like,
the
"What are you doing?" Yeah,
yeah,
right. "What are
the
you
sort of
doing
weird
here?"
stuff that he gets into.
Yeah.
Like, pretending to vomit is a theme. He's like, "Oh, I'm
Oh,
gonna
that's
get sick,"
fun.
and he's like, "Ugh, ugh," and I'm like, "Oh, great, great stuff."
Yeah, that's funny.
So, let's just talk about, medication, supplements, anything like that.
Yeah. Oh, for me, I have, like gosh, I don't even know when I was originally diagnosed with insomnia. I think I may have been 17, 18, 19, and it was making me physically ill. I mean, it was like regular. I could fall asleep, but then I'd wake up in the middle of the night and I'd be up all night, and then it was just a really bad cycle. So I don't think well, I've been taking sleep medication for quite a long time. I tried all of the usual suspects like Ambien and stuff, and the Ambien, I
Sorry,
think
like what?
Ambien,
Okay.
like that was awful. I gained like 20 pounds in like a week. It was just crazy. And then eventually, somewhere I think in my late 20s, they prescribed me Trazodone. So I've been taking that for years. And, I try to come off of it sometimes, and it just life gets in the way, and then I get anxious. And yeah, I know I'm not exactly the picture of perfect sleep here, but it's just always been a struggle. And for me, it's more worth it for me to get a good night's sleep and be healthy than to try to wean myself off of it and be not good.
When I talk to my patients and their parents about sleep medications, like, almost nobody wants to be on a sleep medication,
Yeah,
right?
right.
Like,
Yeah.
in spite of what people think, very few people actually want to use medications, but the fact is some people do better on them than not. Trazodone's been around for a long time. It seems to increase your proportion of slow wave sleep, which is relatively unique. It's not habit forming. Has your dose been stable for a long time? Yeah, so, like, if that's the case, I mean, sometimes some people seem to get tolerances pretty quickly to sleep medications, and then you
Yeah,
have to
no.
cycle them. And I would say to anybody taking a sleep medication, and this is especially true for parents who, like, you've gotta do the work of having good sleep hygiene. Like, these pills
Yeah.
aren't anesthesia.
Right.
You can't like, I had a kid once, I'll change the details, but he was at a very high pressure private school, and he said to me, he's
Mm.
like, "Well, I finish my homework at midnight every night, so I need to fall asleep by 12:10 so I can get enough sleep.
Oh,
Your
wow.
medication
Yeah.
is gonna do that." And I'm like, "That's not
Yeah.
how sleep medication works."
No.
It nudges you in the right direction, but you
Right.
can't go full tilt on your calculus homework And then
and then
have to
pass
fall
out.
asleep.
Yeah.
So like a medication is a tool, just like lifestyle modifications are a tool. Um, there's no moral dimension to this, and Trazodone's pretty safe, honestly. Um, the one side effect of note is a idiopathic one for men, which can get priapism, which is a painful erection that will not go away, and
Well, thankfully, I won't get that.
yeah, which is probably not gonna be a concern for you. In my career, I've written a lot of Trazodone scripts. It is often an awkward conversation to have with teenage boys and their parents. It's very rare, but,
Mm,
I actually did a recent literature review on this, trying to see if this is like, does this go away after you're on it for a while? Or
yeah.
I was honestly kinda like, "Do I have to just keep talking about this?" Because it's always an awkward conversation, and it's like, well, this is still a thing, and it doesn't go away with time, so there it is.
So then I would assume that you would stop using it if that happens, right?
Well, I mean, the first thing is you have to go get medication,
Mm.
to to resolve the situation so you do not
Yeah.
harm your penis.
Oh,
But then after that,
okay.
I imagine after a situation like that, especially because I think those drugs are injectable, so
Oh,
after that occurs, I think for most people, they would wanna move on to a different product.
yeah, I would assume so. I
So,
would assume
yeah,
so.
but yeah, and it's kind of kept me from wanting to try it myself.
Yeah.
But, no,
Yeah.
no, but it is a good medication. It's off-label in kids. Most things we do are required with a prescription. It's not a recommendation that anyone here try it, but, just to kinda talk about the medication that you're taking.
Yeah.
Um,
And I do take magnesium glycinate as well. And I started taking that. Actually, my acupuncturist told me about it because Ashley was getting older. I was still nursing and I was worried about my supply. And she said, try taking this magnesium every night. The first night I took it, and I wasn't on Trazodone at that time. I took some time off and I
when you
sure
were
didn't
nursing
need
him.
it because I was exhausted. Yeah, I took some time off of it and I had the best sleep I'd had in forever that night. So I texted her and I said, hey, is this supposed to help with sleep too? And she's like, yeah, did you get good sleep? And I said, yes. And I know it's anecdotal at this point and the evidence is very limited, but it does seem to help,
Yeah. No,
or I think
honestly,
it
I
helps.
I take magnesium too, and, I used to take Magnetine, magnesium threonate, and it's very expensive. So I tried magnesium glycinate, and, we've talked in the podcast before about magnesium. So magnesium is very interesting, and it's kind of having a little bit of a moment in terms of sleep.
Mm, hmm.
Uh, so when I looked on this, I was a little bit skeptical because honestly, there's not a lot of like clinical trials in kids or adults showing benefits. There are a few in adults. There's like one NICU study, but there's theoretical reasons why it might be helpful. The first is if you look at the diet of the average Western diet, people are not getting enough magnesium in their diets. The second is actually hard to measure total body magnesium because blood magnesium levels are regulated very closely in the body. Magnesium is critical for your heart rhythm because it's related to contraction of muscles. So your body is going to keep that magnesium level tightly controlled, even if you have less magnesium elsewhere in your body.
Mm.
Um, and it's pretty safe unless you take a huge amount of it. I could only find one death related to an overdose, and it'd been like a couple of bottles of magnesium.
Oh, goodness.
So it's pretty safe. If you don't need it, your kidney's just going to pee it out. I think the main risk
That's what
taking
I was
it.
just going to say. Don't you just pee it out?
I mean, look, the risks with supplements in general, and full disclosure, I'm going to tell you, I take 3 supplements for sleep, is primarily related to, I mean, anything can have side effects, but also supplements in the US are regulated as food supplements and not medications, so the quality control is not good. I actually use a site called Consumer Lab, which does third-party testing on a lot of different products. It's a subscription, but it's like $60 a year. And because
Mm,
people are always asking me about supplements in my job, I also like that resource.
yeah.
Um, so I take the magnesium glycinate that they recommend. I also take some L-theanine, and, if you think there's not a lot of data on magnesium, there's less for theanine.
But I
Theanine
feel like that's out there right now too.
yeah,
Like it's having a moment.
so theanine it's common in green tea and other foods. What interested me is because it doesn't make you drowsy, but it seems it in very limited data, it seems to help with nighttime awakenings, and it also helps with anxiety.
Interesting.
So I tried this, and honestly, like, I have anxiety, and it was helpful. I felt less anxious
Yeah.
after taking it for a while,
Yeah.
and it did help with my nighttime awakenings. And I I also take a little bit of melatonin, and, honestly, I'm always preaching melatonin safety. It's a hormone. A lot of parents really don't, using too much of it. I take a milligram, which is a very small dose, and it clearly helps me fall asleep.
Mm,
Now there was an abstract that got a lot of press a couple of months ago looking at a relationship between taking melatonin and increased incidence of cardiovascular events and death. So there were some important limitations to this study. Let me just bring that up because I want to make sure I get these details right. But this was a conference abstract. It was not actually published. So yeah, and I was looking at okay, I'll put a link in the show notes, but it was published at and they actually the American Heart Association had a press release. It was so and long-term melatonin supplementation was associated with an 89% higher risk of heart failure, threefold
what?
a threefold increase in heart failure related hospitalizations, and a doubling of all-cause mortality over 5 years, which sounds pretty scary, right? Uh, and I think
Yeah, it sure does.
Yeah, I think there's a couple problems with it. First of all, this is not relevant to children or teens. There was no data in this. This was older people. It was a mixture of, I believe, a mixture of other countries, and melatonin in Europe is often prescription versus in the
Right.
U.S. it's a supplement. They didn't have
Right.
data about dosing. And the other
Ah,
thing is that insomnia itself is associated with hypertension, coronary artery disease, and heart failure. So
yeah, right. So how deep
yeah.
was their insomnia as well?
So yeah, people don't just take melatonin, they take melatonin because they take it because they have
Right.
insomnia. So
Yeah.
they try to do some statistical stuff to cancel this out, but I think the jury's still out till they actually publish this to see if this is worth paying attention to. And I'm not worried about this right now. I'm still taking it, but the one thing I want to and I use I'll put the preparations I use in the show notes. Again, not a recommendation, but if people are interested, I use ones that have had the third party testing that makes it look pretty good. And with any of these things, you've got to make the calculus: is my life better with this or without it? And I think the risk for supplements are, well, like do your research. Is it something that's safe? Is it something that's not going to interact with medications you're already taking?
Right.
Um, because honestly, if you talk to your physician, you're taking a couple of medications, especially psych medications. People don't always disclose if they're taking supplements, and there can be interactions.
Yeah.
Um,
I think people sometimes think that it's like, share the medications that you're on, and they don't really think
yeah,
of those things as
sure. So
part of that.
anything you think might have benefits might also have downsides.
Yeah. Right.
There's a lot of magical thinking these days about sort of wellness-based interventions versus medicine.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I think you have to think about them the same way. So, Ariel, let me ask you, 2026, how are you sleeping right now?
Fine, as long as my child doesn't wake me up, which isn't normal. That's not a normal situation, but I think I've had this routine for so long now. I have been sleeping well, so that's good.
I was looking at my Oura Ring data. My sleep was terrible in December because I had some work travel and it was the holidays,
Yeah.
and my travel was screwy as well. My sleep's been pretty good lately. Uh,
Yeah.
I find the key for me is stopping what I'm doing and starting to wind down by 10 o'clock at night. Oh, we should talk our schedule.
Yeah.
So ideally, I'm in bed lights out by 10:30. Realistically, it's closer to 11. Weekdays, I've got to get up at 6:30. What's your
Yeah.
what's your schedule
Not
like?
that far off from mine. Ideally, I'm in bed by 10 and I'm usually up at 6:30 as well. My alarm clock goes off at 6:30 during the weekdays. I could sleep like I will keep sleeping on the
How late
weekends.
will you sleep in?
Sometimes like 9 or 10.
Yeah, that feels amazing.
Yeah, right.
I yeah, no, I find that, like, often if I'm lately, so I've been playing video games with the same group of guys since early 2000s.
Wow.
So lately we're playing a new game called Arc Raiders, and everybody is pretty excited about that. So I've been staying out later than I can. And the problem is, you walk out of one of the gaming sessions and you're like kind of pumped.
Yeah.
Ideally, I want to be done with that by 10,
Yeah.
like, which is
To
usually
give
like ten
yourself time to
fifteen.
wind down a little
Yeah,
bit.
yeah, have some time to wind down.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think when I was a resident, we used to play
Oh, I
more and
can't
later
even
in the night. But
imagine.
I was younger and
Yeah.
more more bulletproof.
Right.
So listen, that's all we've got about our sleep routines. Hope this was of interest to you. If you got any questions, just shoot us an email or on social. Arielle, do you have anything you want to share this week that might be interesting to our listeners?
No.
What's the email address that we have for this podcast?
Oh, no, all I have to share is that we're getting way too much snow and I'm over it. Our email, you can reach us at thesleepeditshow@gmail.
True story. My Oura Ring also showed that I spent 4.5 hours shoveling. The plow guy's plow broke on Sunday. My son,
Oh, no.
my son said 3.5 hours on Sunday and an hour on Monday. And my son's like, "You're being so dramatic." And I'm like, "This is just the number. I'm
Right.
not complaining."
Yeah.
To be
Yeah.
fair,
Yeah.
fair, Teddy, I think you spent about 20 minutes out there.
How much snow did you get?
Oh, maybe 15 or 16 inches.
We were the jackpot city. We're not a city. Town in Massachusetts, Sterling. So we got at 6:30 in the morning on Monday, we had 22.2 inches. And then it continued to snow all day. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow,
So,
that's
and then it just, I feel like it kept snowing. And then every night we've been getting flurries. And yeah, I live in what's called the Worcester Hills and we just get a lot of snow.
yeah, that's a lot of snow. Well, I was going to say the only thing I want to share is I've been doing some vibe coding. I'm learning to build little web apps. So
Cool.
I built a melatonin dose calculator for parents, and actually I just built a iron dosing calculator for restless leg syndrome. That's more for physicians. I'll throw the melatonin dosing calculator in the show notes if people want to check it out. Again, most kids shouldn't need melatonin, but I do find a lot of parents are using too much.
Mm.
So if that's interested, or if you're a provider, you want to link to it, that would be great. I also made it open source for nonprofits on the webpage. I've got the GitHub as well.
You're such a good person.
Well, I mean, it's not based on my data.
Sharing is caring. Yeah,
Sharing is caring,
exactly.
man. We're
Yeah.
only going to get through this together.
That's right.
So thanks for listening, and we'll see you at the next podcast. True story. I had a mom once say to me, she's like, "Oh, I thought your name was Dr. Cannabis." I was like,
That
"Be
would be
cool if it
cool.
was," but
Yeah. Well, I mean, my last name is Greenleaf, so people are always like,
there it is.
"Oh, Greenleaf."
Yeah, it must have gone down well at St. Paul
Sure did.
in the
90s.
90s. I was going to say 2000s. I don't know. So okay,
Come on.
let's strike